Why is shame such a powerful emotion? How does it affect us mentally, physically, emotionally? I'm Nadia Davis. I'm a mom, author, attorney, and Kundalini yoga teacher who has experienced public shaming that brought me to my knees. On this podcast, I'm going to tell you how I'm living the work, taking shame out of the shadows. I'll give you real-life advice and skills to take away with you throughout your day. You'll hear from powerful guests who have overcome trauma and emerged stronger than ever. You too can ban the shame within and around you. Join me. You are not alone. Welcome. It is Monday morning, and for me, it's a little after 10 a.m. For the person I'm interviewing, author and speaker Monica Mancillas. She is in England. So what time is it there?
6 p.m.
Okay. So how cool is it to be gathering together and just joining hearts as women that care about the worries that enter our kids' heads and how we can transform those into healing power. That is the mission of this podcast. It is to identify shame, see it for what it is, identify the core wounds that it might be triggering, and see whatever worries it might be creating, that part of us that feels defective, and understanding it and, putting it out there and hopefully getting the support of others, reaching for our loved ones around us and seeing it for what it is, accepting it, having self-compassion, and then transforming it into human connection and healing. And I'm super, super happy that author Monica Mancillas responded to, I think it was an Instagram message I sent, because my sons, I have 8-year-old twin boys, and they go to Lowell Elementary in Long Beach. And her book, The Worry Bubble, is one of several of her books. Do you go Monica?
Yeah, Monica or Monica.
Okay, that's one of my best friends from law school. Monica Badarama. You taught me how to say Monica Mancillas' name correctly. And she wrote this book, among many others. There's a beautiful bio that we will get to from her heart directly. And I just want to jump in. Throughout this discussion, I will share what my son said, but I really want to applaud you, Monica, for getting to this space in your heart and soul to be able to put these downloads that you've received into a children's book, and how beautiful that is. So welcome, first of all, to Home is Within You podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so Monica, I thought it was cute how your website has a micro bio and then a bio. She is an award-winning author. Her books include Mariana and Her Familia, and it has won various different accolades, including the Library Guild Gold Standard Selection in 2022, the School Library Journal Best of Picture Books, and then the one I refer to, The Worry Bubble, and also How to Speak in Spanglish. Last year, it won a September Target Book Club pick, and this year, America's Award commended title. Also, Sing It Like Celia, Taco Tuesdays, and Leyendas, Legends. So many of her offerings are Spanglish, and speak to identity, culture, mental health, which I love. And it also challenges outdated tropes that have historically left the Latin community and our voices in the margins. She was born in the small coastal town of Ensenada in Baja California, Mexico. Monica moved with her parents to the U.S. when she was only 2 years old. As a child, she loved nothing more than to study and explore self expression through writing and music. And I'm going to stop there because, Monica, tell us how that light in you, that spark in you all started. Tell us about your little girl and what it was like to grow up in Ensenada and then when you came to the States. Let's start there.
Yeah, well, I don't have a whole lot of memories of my earliest years in Ensenada, but I do have plenty of memories of visiting there because San Diego obviously isn't terribly far away. It's like, a 2 hour drive.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's the best way to describe those visits was just um, coming home to a feeling of unconditional love and acceptance.
Hmm.
And there was definitely always, I talk about this a lot in my picture books, this feeling of kind of being caught in between two worlds and not knowing if I was enough of either one. And feeling, there was definitely a language barrier because I left when I was so young. Even though I did speak Spanish, I felt like I didn't speak it as well as I spoke English. And so, where I was very obviously being a writer, even at a young age, I how I expressed myself, both verbally and in written form, really meant a lot to me. And so there was definitely a feeling of shame and embarrassment that surrounded not being able to speak Spanish and express myself as well as I wanted to.
Hmm.
Um, but I think what I came back to time and time again was that that was all in my head and my experience, but not in my family's. They didn't see me as anything other than that precious baby that had been born and had learned to walk and learned to speak and learned to eat in their home. And that home still, my family still lives there, and that home still represents all of that to me, just a feeling of unconditional love and acceptance.
Hmm. How beautiful that you received that soul connection, that love. I often speak about how every day we have a choice between love and fear or judgment. And, why is that important, especially for those in recovery? And I kind of think of it as this getting out of the darkness, getting into kind of solution and getting out of like this small tiny, tiny little world that our mind can create. I have two different types of contacts in my eyes. I have one that just sees close and one that just sees far. Some people's brains can't do those contacts. And I just shared in a meeting earlier, like how when we're in that, like that little, our fears, right? And our self judgments, or we're trying to navigate others, and like you were explaining, you felt um, defective. You felt like I don't speak well enough English. Like I will, maybe they won't like me, right? And versus when we can get in that like wider love and that whole unconditional love. And it's beautiful that you had that from your family. Can you describe how that then helped you? I mean, was that like feeling in your element? Was that your soul calling? Was that, this light, choosing love, as I talk about? What was that experience like for you in the years after as you navigated these two worlds?
I think that it took me decades to get to that place. It really wasn't until I became an author and started writing about those experiences, those early experiences, that I was able to see things in a different perspective. I think that's one
Mhm.
of the beautiful things about being an author is that we get to rewrite our story and see it through the lens of a character and how this character, you need to create an emotional arc for every character that you write. And so it's important that you not only identify whatever emotional struggle they're going through, but figure out how to help them to resolve it in some way. And that's something that
Right.
we can't always do in our own lives. So it
Hmm.
gives me an opportunity to do a lot of that healing as I'm writing.
Hmm.
And it also, what was incredibly transformative for me was getting the books out in the world and then having young children see themselves in those stories and also have caregivers, their parents, come to me and say, I felt so seen reading this book. That was exactly my experience growing up. And so for the first time, I realized that this wasn't just my experience. This was
Mhm.
a much broader cultural experience that a lot of kids and adults go through been, you know, when they've been raised between two cultures.
So, do you think that it is the two cultures, yes, as well as kind of human existence that it will separate us from our true selves within and love within that we come from, and then it's magnified, right, in these two separate cultures, right? Right, like we can see it in front of us, and we see it all over the world, right? Um, so in your heart, you beautifully were able to be fed like by that unconditional love and by your family, and um, for others that are out there that don't really have that around them, especially those in trauma and addiction recovery that are just consumed with that immediate shame before them. um, that's where I often talk about, if you can't find that outside you, there is a space within you that's called home that can heal all. And so when you disclose the worry, when you're writing, it's almost like like you had spiritual experiences when writing, right? Where like you talked about the context of the character, the what did you call it, the arc?
Yeah, the
Uh,
emotional arc. Yeah.
the emotional arc, like in those moments when writing, um, is it like, aha, and you like past, present, future kind of combine, and do you what is that like artistic moment that really is kind of a spiritual download that you're able to put on paper, right? Past, present, future, that's what is that kind of it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
Right.
especially when writing for children, obviously I'm not a child and haven't been a child for a long time, but I was one once. And so I have to look back and mine my childhood experiences for those big moments, those moments that I carried with me into adulthood. Um, and you were talking about the feeling of shame, and I definitely feel a lot of connection to that with regards to the whole back history behind the backstory behind writing the worry balloon. Because in order to even begin to write that book, I had to really look inward at that feeling of shame that I had carried since childhood about mental health issues, and have a conversation with myself and decide whether or not I was ready to take that dialogue that had been, an inward dialogue for so long, and put it out there in the world,
Right.
and talk openly about it. So I think that's kind of where the transformation happens, is not just in the writing process, but in the publicly acknowledging those struggles that you've gone through and those things that maybe did make you feel a lot of shame.
Right. How beautiful. How that's transforming this feeling of shame, that separation. I feel like it's spiritual warfare. I have all this lingo, but that's what I mean by spiritual warfare. It's like these thoughts will just take us out of, you know, being in the present, right? And being in our element. And you that unconditional love outside you, it seems like you were so able to, I mean, you navigated it. You said it carried that core wound, that feeling of defectiveness carried on. And it really wasn't until what I heard you say, until adulthood, when you had that conversation with yourself, your own little girl, and then sharing it with others. That's so courageous. That's the most courageous thing that anybody can do, is share in vulnerability. And in that, then it just pierces that right, that bubble I was talking about of that fear and judgment, that ego, like mind stuff. And you can get into, right, the transformation, the solution, and all share the love within you then with others. And that's beautiful, that's what this book represents, the worry bubble. So Monica went to the school and read this book to the students, okay, in their classroom. And then afterwards, handed out a piece of paper that had the worry bubble and a little girl holding a balloon. And then the balloon was empty. And correct me if I'm not telling this right. This is what my sons told me. Is that then she asked, what are your worries? And they wrote it in the bubble. And one of the most profound things that I saw and immediately identified with, and it seems that you did too, and is one of my sons wrote, "What if they don't like me?" And I thought it was such a profound telling statement of the human condition, because he knows his friends and his family and everyone around him not only like him, that they love him, yet there's that belief that we carry, right? Um, what does that come from? That, I believe, is the functioning of our mind. It is such a survivalist type of mind. It will even attack us, ourselves. And so building in that reflection time that you allowed, that you got them in, we can start observing those thoughts and start maybe separating ourselves a little bit from them, maybe observe them better in others. And that in my experience over years and years, and I have to do it still every single day throughout the day, is that creates then the space that we can call home within us, where we are okay with the thoughts, even those ones that separate us, because we've called them out, we've written them down, we've shared them with somebody. Then we can start connecting with our soul and love. Is that kind of the process that you go through? And do you still have those moments today, Monica? And how do you walk through them?
Yeah, of course, I still have those moments every single day. I do think it is part of the human condition, and the older I get, the more I realize that no amount of friendship or family is going to erase that feeling of loneliness that I think we all carry with us. That it really is just part of being human. Here we are on a
Mm,
planet with 8 billion other people, and endless opportunities to meet people and talk to people and share our experience with people. And some days we feel that connection, and it uplifts us, and we feel like, we feel that we're loved and liked. And then on our darker days, when we are having more difficulty getting outside of our head and our own perspective, that feeling of loneliness is just pervasive. It doesn't matter. We have to walk through those dark times on our own in a lot
Mhm.
of respects. I know that I've gone through some really dark periods in my life, and no matter, no matter what I do in terms of reaching out to my support network, there's really nothing that anybody can do, because the experience is happening internally. It's happening inside
Right.
me. So, um, the reason that I wrote that book, The Worry Balloon, is because my daughter started experiencing anxiety when she was 6 years old, and
Mm.
I had witnessed my mom go through several periods of anxiety as a child. And back when I was growing up, we didn't talk about this. We didn't talk.
Sorry.
That's okay. Mine's barking too. We
So
didn't
you
talk
didn't talk.
about Yeah, we didn't talk about mental health issues. There was really a
Mhm.
stigma around mental health. And so when my mom was going through these periods of depression and anxiety, I was always told, don't tell people what's going on. This is, there was this real concern of what the perception was going to be. And I didn't have the vocabulary to understand what it was that she was going through. Um, and so I grew up with this, first of all, fear of what it meant to go through anxiety and depression, because it was something that had been kind of painted as abnormal. It wasn't part of the human experience, it was abnormal. And so when I, as an adult, started experiencing even normal anxieties, it created it spiraled. My anxieties became bigger and bigger because I was so afraid of being anxious, and I was so afraid of what that meant about who I was. And now, of course, things have changed a lot, and people, very openly talk about their mental health issues, and they wear it proudly on their social media handles, and but so I tried, um, in an effort to not have my daughter go through the same thing that I went through as a child. Not meaning, not seeing anxiety and depression. Of course, she was going to see the experience, because I know now, it is part of the human experience. But I didn't want her to be afraid of it or ashamed of it in the same way I was. So I started with her at a very young age, going to yoga and doing meditation, and just trying to give her the tools, the coping mechanisms for managing all those worries, without any expectation that she would actually have to deal with them as a child. And then when she did start experiencing anxiety herself, that was when I realized, okay, I have to step this up even more and name this for her. Started by naming what it was, just like you might do, I suppose, with addiction, is name what it is. Okay, this feeling that you're feeling right now is anxiety. It's a normal human experience, part of a human experience. It's something we all experience throughout our lives to varying degrees. And in doing that, I think it not only took the stigma away, but it made it something that she could understand. Just like, if you have a cold, okay, I know I have a cold. Here are my symptoms. I know that they're not going to be here forever. It's the same thing with anxiety. So that, I think, was very empowering to her. And then again, giving her tools to manage it, knowing that there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. We do have some control over how we navigate those experiences, as opposed to what I was told as a child, that I have no control of this. This is something that's going to get me, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm.
And then
That
when the
fear.
pandemic hit, I started noticing she was dealing with new anxieties, separation anxiety, and things like that had never been a part of her life before. And I started talking to other parents whose kids were going through the same kinds of things. And I thought, okay, this is a systemic problem. This generation of kids is dealing with so many huge existential concerns that we didn't have to deal with growing up. And I
So
decided that
true.
was when I needed to write this book and to, again, normalize and name the experience, and then also incorporate all these different tools to help them to manage it, so they have a sense of control, that it's going to be okay, that there are things they can do to calm themselves in the moment.
Can you give an example for our listeners of a moment such as that? And I am assuming how you quickly process your own little girl within you and what might be coming up if you're observing your daughter, and then the reaction then to what you're observing for your daughter. I love those moments myself as a mom, and it's a miracle that they're happening. Um, just in terms of the years it took to get to be fully present for my kids. But what you're sharing, um, is so beautiful, and I call them story time for parents in recovery. So if you could share, um, the internal and then kind of the external process, like the top 3 tips, or steps, that would be wonderful.
The top 3 steps for managing worries, managing anxiety?
For in that parenting moment,
Oh, in the parenting.
when
Yeah.
in the parenting moment, like, give an example, and then kind of the process within you, and then the process, externally, just
Mhm.
so we can make it a little bit more
Yeah.
real.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the first thing, as a parent, when your child is dealing with any kind of struggle, it's really anxiety provoking for us, really challenging. You don't, to see your child hurting is so painful, especially when it's something that is not an easy fix, or something that you can't immediately pull them out of. If they fall down, they scrape their knee, you can tend to that wound, you can comfort them, the moment passes quickly. But when they're dealing with something like anxiety that comes and goes and comes and goes, um, and yourself what that feels like, that can be really, really triggering and
Or what it might
traumatic.
be, or what the source might be from,
Yeah.
right? Our head can go in different directions, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and there's a lot of questioning of what you might have done as a parent to create those anxieties, and the responsibility ultimately is yours, because
Mhm.
they're not grown. It's
Mhm.
your responsibility to help them navigate. So I think the first most important thing to do is to tend to your own anxieties surrounding this experience with your child. And I had to do a lot of affirmations. Affirmations really help me daily to get
Mhm.
through challenges. So affirming that, okay, we can get through this, these are the steps that I can take to help her to navigate this. I'm in a position, having had experiences of my own, to be able to mentor her through this. So staying calm as a
Mhm.
parent, I think, and tending to your own anxiety is really important. And then trying different things, because every person responds to different techniques differently. So what works for one kid might not work for another. What works for me as an adult might not work for my daughter. So we had to, in these early experiences with anxiety, we had to try a whole bunch of different things. We tried therapy, we tried yoga, meditation, we tried different breathing techniques, essential oils. She had a little necklace that she would wear to school that had essential oils in
Oh,
it.
I
And
love
she
that.
would just, anytime she was feeling anxious, she would breathe in.
Mhm.
Um, so there were
And she
certain,
started at 6?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's beautiful.
She started at 6, and the and that what is really profound for me now is that she's 11, and I will see her now talking to other kids, who are dealing with anxiety, and helping them through it, because maybe their
Mm.
parents don't know how to deal with it. And so she'll tell them, when they say, I'm feeling dizzy, naming their symptoms, she'll say, you're feeling anxiety.
Oh
You're
my
having an
gosh.
anxiety attack. It's okay. Let's try some breathing, and she'll help them through it. And I see the positive effect that it has on her friends, on the kids in her sphere, because now they have somebody who understands what it is that
Mm-hmm.
they're going through. And again, it's being normalized. It's not something that's this scary, I don't know what's happening to me experience.
And the
So,
shame is just
yeah,
banned. It's
yeah,
like
yes.
love. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. So it took a few years then of just we patiently grounding yourself and then exposing her to all these different things. And then was it just recently or in the last year you started observing her then telling
No,
others?
this started a few years ago. I
Okay.
mean, it was like as soon as it became, a part of her existence, he started noticing it in other kids, and actively would try to help them through those experiences. I
Okay.
mean, at like 8 or 9 years old, which was, again, so amazing to me to see, because I was that kid that I had no idea that anybody else in the world was dealing with anxiety. And I thought it was just something my mom and a handful of other people in the world were going through. And I'm sure there were tons of kids around me dealing with anxiety within themselves or at home, and I had no idea because we didn't
Right.
talk about it. So,
Separate little
yeah,
anxious,
yeah,
creatures and human beings.
yeah.
That is beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay. I definitely will want you back for another one of your books, but please, everybody, check out The Worry Bubble by Monica Mancillas. It is,
Worry
oh,
balloon.
did I say The Worry Bubble?
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, now everybody's really going to remember the title. The Worry Bubble, the
Balloon.
balloon, the worry balloon, the worry balloon. Now, I think the worries can create a bubble around us, but we can put them in a balloon, write them down, give them to another, and let the universe take it. That's a process over time. And slowly, 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 we can really be present for our kids so that then they can be present for others. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for this book. Thank you for giving my sons the opportunity to write their worries in a balloon and see it for what it is and transform it into some healing power. Thank you for what you do. Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners?
Well, first, thank you for allowing me to be here and talk about the book. And I'm so glad that it had some meaning and was helpful to your kids. That's the most meaningful experience for me as an author. And to the listeners, anybody who might be struggling with whatever it might be, my I will just say, this too shall pass. And I've had some very, very difficult moments in my life where I've thought it would be so much easier to just not be. And in those moments, there is another voice that always reassures me that there is something on the other side of this, and that I'm strong enough to navigate, that I'm strong enough to get through this. And I believe that of every living being in this universe.
And in that home within, you were listening. That's beautiful. Thank you again. Oh, and everyone, check out the Band Shame Tip Sheet. It is free and it's 10 different little mini sayings that you can use as affirmations in your day to help with those worries. Okay, bye. Love you. You are not alone. If you are dealing with shame and trauma, please reach out to me through my website, nadia-davis.com. You can get a free Band Shame tip sheet and find out about upcoming events. I'd love it if you picked up my book, Home is Within You, wherever books are sold. If you like this podcast, please tell a friend, leave a review, and make sure to follow me on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Sending warm hugs.